Already practice?
I did.
What did we learn?
Nothing.
Did we have it right?
I did, yeah. Y'all gave me the
Okay.
perfect, directions and. How was grandma?
Dina is fabulous. Dina is a miracle. 7 years old, last of her generation. In our family, per se, she's not the last of her 7 siblings, which is amazing because she's got a sister who lives around the corner, who's 95, 92. She's 92. Her husband is 90.
you get everything like you wanted it?
Oh, come on. We will now call this October the 9th meeting of the Orange County Board of Education to order. And I need a motion for us to enter closed session.
Motion to go into closed session pursuant to NC General Statute 4.
Well, I was going to read that.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And a second?
Go. Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. The board will enter closed session pursuant to NC General Statute 143-318-11, A1, A3, A5, and A6 to consult with the board attorney and preserve the attorney-client privilege, to consider the confidential personal matters, and to prevent the disclosure of confidential personnel information under North Carolina General Statute 115C-319. Okay, we will now move into closed session. The Orange County Board of Education pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves with the same courtesy toward both school personnel and each other. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. In addition to the moment of silence, the board will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain that they are either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interruption of this meeting. Let us now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We will now observe a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. At this time, we have recognitions. Mr. Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Dr. Merrill, members of the board. We'd like to ask Ms. Debora Williams to please come forward. As you all know, we underwent a very long and arduous process of self-examination for the district, and that process brought us a lot of good information, but it also brought us some recognition for a number of practices that were taking place on a regular and systematic basis here in Orange County Schools. So please come forward, and we'd love for you to tell the board more about what you experienced with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good evening, board members.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to be here with you tonight to present Cognia's Values-Driven Award of Excellence to Orange County Schools. Cognia, formerly SACS and Advanced Ed, is a global network of enthusiastic educators focused on supporting and improving educational outcomes for learners. The Values-Driven Award of Excellence recognizes institutions that dream big, that stand for the learner, that are bold and daring, they drive potential, they tenaciously and relentlessly pursue their mission, and they build connections by expanding and nurturing internal and external relationships. While engaged with the district staff during the recent accreditation engagement review, Cognia's evaluators found the district's commitment to these values evident in the professional learning designed to support staff in understanding learners' needs and interests. It was evident in the district's proactive approach to building a healthy culture, and most powerful to Cognia was the district's engagement of professional staff in developing, communicating, implementing, monitoring, and adjusting the continuous improvement process. In our work with the district's AER, we also found evident that the board and staff district-wide believe school and school systems do not become high-performing by chance, nor do they become high-performing overnight. And for your continued dedication and support of children, on behalf of the Cognia Improvement Network, I present Orange County Schools Cognia's Values-Driven Award of Excellence, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Dr. Merrill.
Absolutely. It's our pleasure.
Turn it around. Board, if you wouldn't mind standing up, and then obviously we'll have you shake Miss Williams' hand as well.
Okay.
If we can turn the award around, because it's currently, there we go. All right. Thank you all. On the count of three. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you. If you'd like to greet the board, that'd be great. Would you care to greet the board?
I would, please. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you so much for all your work with us.
Absolutely. It was our pleasure. We truly enjoyed it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And who should I leave this with?
Franklin will take it for you.
Franklin's got his arms out.
Thank you again.
Thank you so much. We appreciate all of your hard work.
It was a true pleasure. We really enjoyed working with the district, and it was very insightful. And the accreditation process is designed, it has been redesigned actually, to engage districts and institutions in not only analyzing their data, which is something we do in North Carolina. We have lots of data for our schools, but not only do we analyze it, we guide you in synthesizing that data. And so you saw all of that in the report.
Yes, ma'am.
So again, it was our pleasure, and thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just add, I think that's a recognition on behalf of the work of so many people that work in this school system, parents, families, students who are the product producers, and our community support. So it really is a reflection of that work.
And I'd also like to thank Dr. Merrill, the central office staff who worked with them, because I know that took a tremendous amount of time. So thank you all. Okay, our next recognition is our beginning teacher of the year. How exciting.
All right, good evening, Chair Purcell, Vice Chair Richmond, and board members, and Dr. Merrill. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our beginning teacher of the year, Sarah Woody. She is a 4th grade teacher at Grady A. Brown Elementary School. I had the privilege last Friday afternoon of going over, and the halls were filled with all of her students, staff, and just congratulating her. And she was super duper surprised. So we're going to ask that she come forth. I do think she has some family members with here. We also have Principal Chris Marks is here. And I'm going to kind of turn it over to those two so they both can have some words. But again, congratulations.
Good evening, everyone. I'm here to celebrate Miss Sarah Woody, beginning Teacher of the Year for Orange County Schools. Just a couple years ago, Miss Woody walked in our door interviewing for a teacher assistant position. And she told us in an interview, I really am not sure if education is what I want to do, but I at least want to try and see what it's like. And she ended up coming to the #1 school in America, and she learned a lot. So much so that she was so excited to pursue her residency program, become a beginning teacher. She was looking for a teaching job. She loved Grady Brown so much, but we did not have a spot for her. Luckily, about 3 weeks after school ended, a spot opened up, and she said, absolutely, I want to come back. So we're excited that Sarah Woody decided to choose us. We're excited she chose Orange County Schools, and congratulations, Sarah Woody, beginning Teacher of the Year for Orange County Schools.
Thank you. This is such a huge honor. I get up and I talk to 20 students a day, all day long, but it feels a lot different when it's grown up, so excuse me for my nervousness. But I am so privileged and honored to be representing Orange County Schools as the beginning Teacher of the Year. I attended Orange County Schools K through 12th, so it's really a beautiful full circle moment for me to be able to represent the county in this way. Huge thanks to everyone who supported me along the way, my family, my amazing administration, who I think truly make Grady Brown the wonderful place it is, the #1 school in America. And also a big shout out to our cohort of beginning teachers and our mentor, Miss Whitney Williams, for creating a safe space where we can have those conversations about what do we do when we're, reaching this issue? How can we solve this problem? How can we jump over that next hurdle? And we have all these people to bounce ideas off of and to give us advice. And I think that also speaks to the importance Orange County Schools puts onto the beginning teachers and the community they create and all of that great stuff. So I'm really appreciative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, that's great. Congratulations, thank you. Oh. I was waiting for you. Wonderful job. I'll shake your hand again. Good job. I know, but I had other ambitions.
All right. What a great way to start the evening. Okay, next up, we have agenda adoption. Do we have any changes to the agenda that anyone would like to make?
Motion to adopt the agenda?
Okay,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion is carried. Okay, up next, public comments. Mr. Richmond, will you read the
Yes, ma'am, sure will.
words on that? Thank you.
We will now hear public comments. Speakers will be called in the order in which they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Yielding time to other speakers is not permitted. If a speaker has written materials they would like to share, please hand them our board clerk, Franklin McCune, and he will distribute them to the board. The purpose of public comment is for the board to hear from members of the public, not to engage in back and forth discussions. Per our policy, board members will not respond to speakers during the public comment session. The board greatly values public feedback and welcomes all comments, regardless of viewpoint. However, please be reminded that children are often present at these meetings and that our public comment policy prohibits profanity, vulgarity, and personal abuse of any person. We ask that all comments be civil, respectful, and free of personal attacks. Any speaker who violates our public comment period or otherwise exceeds the bounds of order and decorum will be given a warning. Continued violations may result in the speaker being ruled out of order, at which point we will move on to the next speaker. Our first speaker today during public comment will be Wendy Padilla.
Buenas noches, Junta Directiva. Mi nombre es Wendy Padilla. Solamente quería saludarles y dejarles saber que hace 2 semanas, cuando estuve enfrente de ustedes, fui interrumpida cuando hablé en 2 idiomas. Eso causó dolor a la comunidad latinoamericana, fue un insulto a la comunidad y fue algo que fue mucho daño para la comunidad. I will not be translating. I just have 2 things to say to all of you board members is 1, are you aware of the mold situation at Orange High? And 2, are you aware that this is not being anywhere online that is translated for the community? Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Gretchen Smith.
Good evening. Anyone who's been to the school board meetings so far this year, including this evening, has seen a group of activists wearing public schools strong t-shirts, including Orange County School board member. Members of this organization have been trained. They're affiliated with the North Carolina National Education Association, linked with the National Teachers Union, the largest one, and Organized 2020 sent out emails this past spring about setting up a new coalition called Honest Education, Action, and Leadership, or HEAL, that claimed this is a national effort and it was being supported by the National Education Association, People's Action, Dignity in Schools, and many others committed to education justice. One of the first few things HEAL NC did was to hold listening sessions on how to shut down parent complaints at school board meetings. The email for these sessions sent out by Organize 2020 started out by calling parental concerns about their child's education manufactured outrage. Much of this is cited in an article that was sent out at the end of September and has been sent to the board September 30th. And touching on some of the leadership, the top leadership was cited in a Charlotte Observer article, wrote about the leader of PSS, a woman named Janice Robinson, as if she were just some random mom or citizen. After even just some cursory digging, that's not the case. Robinson, per her own website's bio, is a political activist and is the program director in North Carolina for Red, Wine, and Blue, sometimes referred to as the Chardonnay Antifa. She also does campaign consulting and community organizing through her company, JDR Consulting, as well as being an active member of the North Carolina Democratic Party and Mecklenburg's Democratic Precinct. In 2016, with the election of Donald Trump, Janice began a personal crusade to do everything she could to ensure he would not be reelected for a second term. Janice became chair of her precinct, an historically Republican stronghold, wrote out a strategy with the help of 5 other members, and turned her precinct into a solid blue Democratic hold. And just goes on about her her political activism. What I found interesting is a group that claims to want to heal schools has not reached out to any of the organizations, like including Moms for Liberty, who's been working on that for the last couple of years, and actually supports, some of the same ideas. This is in no way an organic grassroots organization led by parents, as what we've been hearing for the last couple of years from many parents, and not just our organization. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes public comment.
Okay, next up, we have board comments. Ms. Smiley, do you have anything?
Thank you. Just a couple of things. First, I just want to acknowledge that it's Indigenous Peoples Day today. And a couple of years ago, the board passed a resolution that was very detailed, that Ms. Doyle spearheaded the creation or the work on that. I know, along with members of the Occaneechi Band of the Saponi Nation and others. I would just really love an update on the things that the board committed to there. So one of those things I noticed said that Indigenous Peoples Day would be permanently recognized in Orange County Schools calendar, which is like a small thing, but I noticed has not happened. A larger one is a commitment to teacher education. There's a course offered by DPI in particular. We talked about that. So I would just love sort of an update on the different items that are in the resolution. And then the other thing is, this weekend I went to the Color of Education conference in Raleigh, which was excellent. It was great to see a number of Orange County Schools staff members there. And I just wanted to pull out some interesting statistics. One of the sessions that I went to was actually led and facilitated by a group of high school students from Holly Springs High School, from their school's Disability Advocacy Student Alliance. And the session was about race and disability and the intersection of those. And they shared a number of statistics in their PowerPoint that I thought were interesting. One is that, so students in general education classrooms have better academic and employment outcomes than students placed in separate spaces, which is one of the reasons that there's been a big push over the past few decades to inclusion. But only 33% of Black disabled students nationwide spend more than 80% of their day in a general ed classroom, only 33%. And then students with disabilities have higher discipline rates than other students, and in particular, Black disabled students. So one of the other statistics they shared with us was that African-American students with disabilities lose 3 times as much instructional time for discipline as their white peers. And that Black disabled students are subjected to mechanical restraints in special education at much higher or much disproportionate rates. And so all of that made me want to know more about the intersection of race and disability and some of the experiences of our students, and whether there are any differences there that we should be looking at. And then I know this is a little bit of a long public comment. The other thing that I'll say that the session really brought up for me was one of the students talked about hesitation moving into a higher level, into an AP class, and transferring into that class. A student with a 504 had a lot of hesitation about moving into that class as one of the few Black students to then also ask the teacher for accommodations, and just a lot of hesitancy about even wanting to go into that class. And that made me think about the equal opportunities schoolwork that's sort of trying to get at the different barriers to students to wanting to go into advanced coursework, and just wondering if we're doing anything to sort of proactively address for students. If you have a 504, if you have an IEP, like that can be accommodated also in a higher level class. Yeah, so that was a great session led by high school students, and the conference in general was wonderful. That's it. Sorry, that was really long. I apologize.
Okay.
All right, go for it.
Sounds like an interesting conference.
It was.
Okay, Ms. Doyle?
Thank you, Chair Purcell. I also wanted to recognize Indigenous Peoples Day, and I don't know if we have a longer acknowledgement that's going to, we do?
We will in November.
In November, okay, okay.
The month.
Okay. I do have our resolution from Indigenous Peoples Day 2021, which we read again last year. It is a little bit lengthy, so let me know, Anne, if you would like me to take the time to do that. But I would like to recognize the members of our community who helped pull this history together and share it with us, educate those of us on the board who worked on crafting this resolution a couple of years ago. Members of our school community, Indigenous members of our school community and teaching staff who spent a lot of time instructing our board members, and also the same folks who created the DPI course, the SACE course. And I was at an event in Durham where there was a land acknowledgement today that had a portion that we don't include. Ours recognizes that Orange County Schools was founded on land previously settled by ancestors of the H.U.B band of the Saponi Nation, and goes on from there. And of course, around the state, there are different histories to the land. So the one in Durham included the Tutelo and Saponi people. But there was an ending in there that I'd like to just read. It says, today the triangle is surrounded by contemporary Native nations, the descendants of Tutelo, Saponi, and other Indigenous peoples who survived early colonization. These nations include the Halawa Saponi and Occaneechi Band of Saponi. North Carolina's Research Triangle is also home to a thriving urban Native American community who represent Native nations from across the United States. Together, these Indigenous nations and communities contribute to North Carolina's ranking as the state with the largest Native American population east of Oklahoma. And so just to echo a little bit of what Sarah said, we made several resolutions in 2021 that we would recognize the contributions of our Indigenous community. We wrote more about that. We would continue to implement teacher training from the North Carolina State Advisory Council on Indian Education, which is SACE. They have professional development materials, a specific course written by one of our staff members. We would continue to pursue the establishment of an honors level course in Native American Studies at the high school level, which I know it's been hard to find someone to fill that role. There's, we have other vacancy issues and there needs to be the student demand, but I am pleased that in addition to our African American Studies course, we also have a Latinx Studies course now at Orange High School, which is a growth. So I hope we can keep growing in this direction. And it was accentuated to us emphasize how important it is to compile more accurate data reflecting who our Native families and students are, removing the asterisk of invisibility. And that, as Sarah mentioned, we would recognize and designate on our calendar and other appropriate materials this day as Indigenous Peoples Day. And there also is the open question about how we've recognized the tribal heritage of the land where River Park Elementary School was established. So those were some specifics that we resolved. And finally, I just want to say, I also really enjoyed the Color of Education Summit. One of the themes that was shared, Jerry Kraft, is that his name? An author and an illustrator, graphic artist, shared how important it was to him growing up. He suffered a avoidance of reading because there weren't positive stories about people like him, because there was a propensity to write only sad stories that include African-American characters. So he had to create his own story through joy and comic and healthy families and fantasy and just every aspect. And so I was just thinking how important it is to hear people's stories and let people tell their own stories and represent themselves. Thank you. I was a little long as well.
Thank you, Carrie. And I think I'm hearing that we are going to celebrate this month in November when it is their month. Okay. So we will bring that back up then. Okay, Ms. Hauser?
Sure, thank you. A little contrast on Indigenous Peoples Day. I'm inspired to remember the families of John Blackfeather and Lynette Jeffries, who have enriched our Orange County Schools community for generations, and their memories are certainly a blessing to us. I'd like to also, on the other side, talk a little bit about our newcomers, and actually it's a request I'd like to make to our staff. I was wondering if we could get a report about our English language learners and newcomers. I don't know if you've been following the news. This week, Guilford County announced the opening of their second newcomer school. And I did a little more research, and it turns out that Chapel Hill Schools concentrates their newcomers into a single elementary, middle, and high school, where they remain until they're ready to transition into a traditional setting. Our teachers have repeatedly asked me to increase our support to newcomers. Our teachers believe that students are transitioned before they are ready for traditional classes. I'm looking for a report that shows the number and growth in English language students. What schools do they attend? English language learner students. What schools do they attend? And how long do we keep them as newcomers? I'm also interested in their end of grade scores and other assessments. My question is, would English language learner students benefit if we expanded our newcomer program and concentrated newcomers in a few schools? I'd like an estimate of how much that might cost and what impacts, pros and cons, would there be for our English language learners and other students. And it would help to understand how much it would cost. And it'd be great to see something in the next month or so as we look at redistricting, because certainly if we were going to start to concentrate our English language learner, our newcomers, it might affect the balance on our redistricting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hauser. Mr. Richmond? I don't have anything. Okay. I am just going to make comment that we as a board met one night last week. I can't remember which one. Wednesday night, I'm being told. Tuesday, Wednesday.
Sorry.
We met virtually with our North Carolina School Boards Association, and they are going to be guiding us in our search for a new superintendent. So we met with them, we talked about a plan, we talked about the dates for everything to be done. And is Will, oh, okay, I'll come back to Will. I forgot, Will is on Zoom, so Will will come back to you since I'm started on this.
No problem.
The application process is open. Now the application has gone out and in journals, websites, and all places that superintendents or superintendents who are searching for a new position would be looking. And so that will be open until November the 6th. We also have out on websites for the community and the staff to do online surveys, and these need to be completed by October the 23rd. So if you've not seen any of these things, if you can't find them, if you will call the central office, and I'm thinking Mr. Smith can help with that because he knows where these things are if you can't find them. And I encourage all staff and all Orange County Schools parents to participate in this survey. We need to know what you want, what your thinking is. We want to hear from you. So my plea to you tonight is to please help with this. Please answer those surveys to the best of your ability and let us know what your thoughts are as we look for a new superintendent and leader for this great school system. So I apologize, Will, for jumping in front of you, and I will let you speak.
No problem. Thank you so much. I just wanted to start by saying I'm very glad to hear we're going to have Indigenous Peoples Celebration next month. And so I won't say anything further on that. But I did want to say a safe environment includes ensuring a healthy environment. And if a teacher, staff, or anyone in our schools is seeing mold or has a concern with mold, they need to report it so it can be addressed immediately. I know we've had one person comment on it tonight, and we've seen some emails around it, but I think people need to realize if it isn't reported and isn't given to the staff to address, there's no way to address it. And I know myself and others feel strongly about ensuring a safe and healthy environment. And I just encourage people to report it if they see it. That's all I had. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Atherton. All right, and as we move in next, we have superintendent's comments.
Thank
Dr.
you,
Merrill?
members of the board. I'll double down on what Mr. Atherton has said. In fact, we sent a notice and a reminder to principals today that asked all principals to be certain if any staff members have concerns about mold or air quality in their classrooms that they report it. We have a firm that's begun work this week. As you know, we've communicated that. They're moving through all our buildings for the next several days. So we are there, and we're certainly ready to get in and look at any particular concerns that staff would have. I really wanted to take a minute or two and share some academic results, but I want to attribute the following comments and observations to Board Member Smiley, who could not wait to get the EOC EOG results and build it into this year's tab at the bottom of the spreadsheets that carry forward historically. But she shared some conclusions from the data, and I'm not sure we've done them justice. We moved kind of quickly through it at one of our recent meetings. So I lift her comments to you, which are observations from some of the data and analysis that we got on EOCs and EOGs. I'll go first with what she referred to as lowlights, because we do come back with some highlights. Just a couple of things. Clearly, we're not where we want to be as a school system. There are a lot of students that are not at the level of proficiency. They've not made the kind of growth we want. There are hundreds of variables that affect every child and a child's growth and learning. But broadly speaking, many students are still not proficient and are not graduating at a career and college readiness level. There continue to be significant deficiencies and differences in proficiency rates by race, economic status, language learner status, ability status, many variables. Growth over time is slower at the middle school level than in elementary schools. Growth has been uneven in the high schools across subjects and groups of students. Fewer students met the ACT score benchmark compared to last year, and we're now just slightly below the state average. At the high school level, more students are graduating college and career ready than the state average, but more are graduating CCR in Orange this year than last, and our rate of increase was higher than the increase of the state as a whole. We do dwell down level by level, grade by grade, student by student, and there's tons of data there that we're working on. Some of the lift ups that Ms. Smiley shared And this is all a result of her work, not mine, so I want to be clear on that. Over the past 2 years in grades 3 through 8 math, Orange County schools have grown faster than the state. Our percent proficient has gone up by 24 percentage points over 2 years, from 30 to 54%, while North Carolina grew only 13 percentage points. Grades 3 through 8 reading scores have also grown at double the rate of the statewide growth over the past 2 years, 8% versus 4%, not as large growth, but still double the rate of the state. And we're now within 1% of the state average. So we're closing on that state average, which is still not a goal to be at the state average, but it's a step. In both math and reading in every elementary and middle school grade, grades 3 through 8, we grew in the percentage proficiency faster than the state. And we talk sometimes about our growth being very strong, but let's not ignore some of our proficiency gains as well. 5 elementary schools have higher proficiency rates in 3 through 8 math than before the pandemic, because we often talk about the bounce back from the effect of pandemic. We have 5 that have exceeded where we were before. 3 elementary schools have higher proficiency rates in grades 3-8 reading than before the pandemic. 6 schools have an overall all-student composite score higher than before the pandemic. And at the high school level, more students are graduating college and career ready, either passing the ACT benchmark or the Work Keys benchmark than the state average. More are graduating CCR in, I read that before, and I was reading it as a negative. It's a positive. So at the elementary math, at the elementary reading levels, good movement, nothing to be satisfied with, but I don't want to let recognition be missed for the work that our teachers, our students, and families and community support groups have done. So wanted to be sure to hit some of those highlights, which we were not able to share at the joint meeting recently because we were following the agenda. So wink, wink, nod, nod. So that's all, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Merrill.
Could I make just a,
Yes, ma'am.
so Chapel Hill at the joint meeting with the commissioners did share a bunch of their highlights, and and we didn't, because it wasn't on the agenda. You all agreed that that wasn't going to be on the agenda. So we weren't ready with that.
We did.
But, I do think there's some value in following up and sharing that information with them as sort of I don't know what the right opportunity is for that, if that's in a chairs meeting or if that's in an email or something, but just to sort of share some equivalent results to what Chapel Hill
I think
did
we
share.
can get the word out, don't you, Dr. Merrill? Yeah,
Glad
I
to.
think we can. We're meeting here on the 7th of November, I think. So I think we can.
As they were talking at that meeting, I was like, we have information too. All right.
Well, thank you for doing that. And thank you, Dr. Merrill, for sharing. Okay, items on consent. Have we passed? We hadn't passed those.
We have not. Motion to approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Consent agenda is approved. And we have one change on our discussion and action agenda tonight. Section A has been pulled because the vendor was not prepared for discussion, I have been told. And this will be moved to our October the 23rd meeting. We just need a motion to pull this item A and move it to the 23rd. So do I have a motion to do that?
So
I'll
moved.
move. Second.
Okay, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. That item will be on our 23rd meeting agenda. Okay, we are moving into Senate Bill 49 policy updates, the second read. We have a second read on policy 3210, 3540, 4720, 4335, 6120, and 7300. Do we have any thing that anyone wants to add to any of these or talk about any further on these, or do we want to vote for second? Ms. Dole?
I do. I have 2 sentences I'd like to request or suggest adding. for policy 3540, the comprehensive health education program. And I sent this to fellow board members this weekend. Would you like me to read aloud? It's just 2 sentences.
Sure. Yes,
Okay.
please do.
So the red line in compliance with the new legislation, so the red line that came out of policy committee and with advisement from our attorney was instruction on gender identity, sexual activity, or sexuality will not be included in the health education program in kindergarten through 4th grade. See also policy 1310/4002, parental involvement. And then these 2 next sentences are what I would request that we add. However, in accordance with multiple federal and district policies, including policy 1710, and the professional standards of multiple educator roles, including standard 2 of the North Carolina Professional Teaching Standards, this policy does not preclude, limit, or prevent the representation or inclusions of individuals and families of diverse genders and sexual identities, including LGBTQ+ individuals and families. In any curricular resources or classroom materials, teachers may also respond to student-initiated questions regarding gender identity, sexual activity, or sexuality.
Okay. It is my understanding that since these were okay and passed on the first read, we can either table these for legal review and then bring it back, or we can take it back to the policy committee, have legal review there, and then bring it back. Am I correct on that?
Ms. Purcell, I believe that's correct, at least for the additional sentences, but I don't think you have to have all of them be brought back. I believe, Ms.
No.
Doyle, you're just looking at one of the policies, which we would just have a legal review of it and bring it back. I wouldn't recommend doing all of, or tabling all of them, just that one.
No, I was going to suggest that if the others are okay, then we would approve policy 3210, 4720, 4335, 6120, and 7300 on second read, and table that one policy until we have that either changed or clarification. Is that the way you understand it, Mr. Atherton, as chair of the policy committee?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so what is the pleasure, to take this back to the policy committee, or just to take it to have legal review, or what would you suggest, Dr. Merrill?
I think the attorney review is more critical than putting it in committee, but I'm jumping on Mr. Atherton's toes. We have a committee this Friday. Don't know that we could get attorney review prior to this Friday unless Will's spoken to Neil, but I know Neil's offline some. So my inclination would be to get attorney review and try and bring it to the next board meeting, but we'll override that if it makes better sense.
It does. The only thing I was thinking is, would this wording be appropriate in other locations as well? And bring it back as, being across multiple, if that wording makes sense. But it's the pleasure of the board, however they would like to proceed. They can go back to policy and have both legal review and see if there's other places that this would make sense, or we just have legal review come back and have a discussion on it, whichever the board's pleasure is.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I'm first of all, I'm in favor of the language. I think that's a great addition to the policy. And I think that just the legal review coming back to the board is fine with me, but I think Will's point about, are there other policies where we might want to add similar language, is also a good one. I don't think we need to wait for that necessarily to pass this one. So maybe that could be an additional consideration for the policy committee to go back to other policies. But if the fastest path to getting this done is to just do the legal review, I'm in favor of that.
Okay. Anyone else? Ms. Howell?
Yeah, I want to just echo my support, because I think the language is important, and it should alleviate a lot of the fears that I'm hearing in the community about who's welcome in our schools. So I thank you, Carrie, Ms. Doyle, for putting that language together. I wonder if we could insert it in our gender support guidelines or a broader gender support policy. It's really overarching about who's welcome in our schools. I think it's really a statement to our families. And I'm just wondering if we could put it in an overarching policy rather than individuals. So something we could look at its policy committee, but it might be an easy way to do that too, because it's really it's an important broad statement. So I appreciate it.
Okay, so I'm hearing that we just get legal review and bring it back. Does anyone want to make that motion that we do that?
Okay, I do. I move that we have legal review over these 2 additional sentences and then come back to the board.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second?
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. All right, now, we need a motion to approve policy 3210, 4720, 4335, 6120, and 7300 on second read. Do I have that motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes. Okay, thank you very much for that. And thank you to Ms. Doyle for your work on that. Okay, we move into financial report and Ms. Rhonda Rath.
Good evening.
Good evening.
This evening, we are here to walk through a quarterly report that is presented to the board each quarter. The one that we have elected to take a look at is the first quarter financial report for you. Thank you. New process here, so thanks for bearing with me.
Okay.
So this was included it's in the agenda, and it is there in the abstract for everyone in the public to take a look at. We did expand this report considerably for the board. This time, it's usually a little bit more condensed, but we did take the opportunity to expand it out to kind of use this as an opportunity to show you a little bit more of the intricacies that are involved with the report, as well as the meanings behind a lot of those categories. One thing to keep in mind when looking at this report is what it represents and what it does not represent. So this does represent the state public school fund, our local fund, our federal funds, as well as our other restricted funds. What it does not include is it does not include either of our enterprise funds, which are after school and school nutrition, nor does it include capital. That's going to be key when you are looking at comparing these from year to year, as well as when you are looking at the categories in general. And I will try to point out, as we're looking at a portion of the report and the categories, why it's important to keep this in mind. So I'm going to kind of take the opportunity to share how I look at this information and what I'm looking for when I pull it together and compile it. So at a very high level, the first thing I'm going to look at is what's come in versus what's gone out, and make sure that we have not paid more out than we have brought in. And as you can see for the first quarter, we have not. We have had 25% of our budgeted revenues have actually come into the district, and 21% have gone out in those categories that I just spoke to you about before. I also look at how the revenues are coming in each of the funds, just to make sure that things are tracking and looking like they should be. The special revenue fund or other receipts fund is our grants revenue fund. So that one is always going to trail behind. And a lot of times those funds are may be received in a bulk and be sitting in our fund balance, and they just roll over from year to year as we continue to initiate these programs. So that one is not concerning to be low. That is actually very normal for those funds to be low, but I am looking at how we're tracking on the other funds to make sure that we got coming in what we're expected to be coming in. Next, I'm going to give you two areas in the full report. I'm going to give you one where kind of looks good and one where it kind of is like, oh, this is a little high. Do I need to be watching this? And kind of talk through that. So the first example that I pulled out was our regular instructional services. And this includes basically all the costs with providing instruction to our students. It includes your teachers in the classroom, our teacher assistants, all of their salaries, all of their benefits. It includes substitutes. It's going to include textbooks, instructional supplies, and several categories, but it's all expenditures, salary and non-salary, that are associated with the instruction of our students. As you can see here, this time last year, we were at 19% across all of our funds compared to 21% this year. There's a couple of things that are going to play into this. How many vacancies do we have in the district? Number one is going to play into how our expenditures are tracking. We know that last year we started out the first quarter of the school year with a lot more vacancies than we have this year. Those are the main categories that are going to come into play. Also, what's going to come into play is this time last year, we had a state budget that had been passed and had been into play for several months before where we are right now. So as a result, the budget that we were benchmarking against last year had already had all of the salary increases, all of the benefit increases, as well as the release of several of our categorical funds already released to the district, where this year we don't have that. So we are not operating, and those are important things to keep in mind, that we have to keep in mind when we're looking at this, especially when we're comparing it to previous years. But either way, we're doing good. You would think at the first quarter, theoretically, we should be at 25%. We're at 21%. So in perspective of what has gone out, we are tracking where we should be. So where does this look different? So a category that I took to give you an opposite look is financial and human services. Pick on myself here. So in this category, you have all of the expenditures that are associated with the financial department, as well as the human resources or human capital department. We also have our bookkeeper, professional development. We have bank fees, all of our district insurances, as well as our workers' compensation, the employee assistance program. All of those expenditures are captured in this category. As a result, it is very typical for this category to be higher than the 25% in the first quarter, because all of those insurance premiums are paid in the first quarter. So you will see this start tracking more in line and below as we go through the year, and it will be higher in the first quarter. So that kind of gives an example of looking at two different categories, two different extremes of where we're running under the 25% and where we're running over the 25%. I'm going to end here with my brief kind of opportunity for a little moment on this report and see if you have any questions.
Ms. Molly? It's not a question, it's just a comment, which is just that I appreciate the new level of detail here and the tagline sort of describing what each of the categories is really used for, as well as just your explanation just now about why those numbers might not perfectly line up, and so some of that like story underneath it so that we can better understand that. You have mentioned the insurance one before, but I haven't written it down in the right place to remember it year to year. But that was just really a helpful presentation, so thank you.
Ms. Hauser?
Yes, I want to thank you also for this report and the full detail, because the first time I've seen that level of detail since I've been on the board. As you know, I've shared some technical comments with you, and actually even some of the things you've been talking about would be wonderful to see in footnotes to the report for people, because people are going to read it by itself, and your comments are really valuable. I just wanted to offer some comments, and I think it's an impressive response to what I could see as a statutory requirement. We have to provide this information every quarter. And I just add that given the challenges that the district has been dealing with, I'm going to be looking for some additional information. And one is periodic reporting of items that the board and management approves all year but are not budgeted. And these are the typically things that hit lapsed salaries or the fund balance, and we approve them, they come to us, but there's no place where we see a cumulative running total of what we've done until the end. So I think so it would be nice for us to kind of track what we're doing as we go. Secondly, I think too many people are asking about how our resources are allocated and whether resources are going to students that need them. So we'll be needing greater clarity about how resources are allocated between the district and the schools, and then also how they're allocated across schools, especially with an equity lens, which is something the board's been interested in. And I think that's going to be really important as we move to redistricting. And I raise this just to clarify that the statutory reports don't answer those questions, and I'm sure we're going to be discussing it more in the budget committee, including how to bring that information forward to the board. In the meantime, I'd say this is great progress, so thank you so much.
Thank you for your feedback.
Ms. Dole?
Thank you, Ms. Rath. Just a quick question. Could you repeat again what the other receipts was?
Yes, those they represent funds that are specific and have to be used in specific categories. A lot of terms we use the terminology grant funding. For example, NC Pre-K, our Medicaid reimbursements fall in this category. Any tuition that we received for out-of-district students, those types of revenues and expenditures are captured in that category. Any of the, we have Boroughs Welcome Grants, all of those types of things are captured in that other receipts, other special revenue fund.
Okay, thank you. And one more quick question, if I may. Just, am I correct in recalling that we aren't always seeing the state and federal in the timely way predicted? That we don't always have a quarter of it received at the end of the first quarter?
That can be accurate, yes.
Okay.
Typically, when you measure against the budget that we have in this time frame, because per statute, if you don't have a state budget that is passed, you go back to the previous year's initial budget, which is what we had to do in this case. So therefore, as a result, the initial budget was even before our first quarter reporting last year. So it is, when you look at it, it's going to be lower because we haven't had those allotment releases from DPI. And also, you bring up a very good point with our federal funds. A lot of times they are delayed and lag in being released to the district.
Thank you.
I'd just like to also say that this is very nice, very easy to read, very easy to understand, and I appreciate your work on getting this done. Thank you so much. Any other comments, questions? Okay. Thank you, Ms. Rath. Okay. If no one has anything else, we're to the point that we can adjourn this meeting, and it's 8 o'clock.
Motion to adjourn at 8 o'clock?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carried. Everyone have a great evening, and thank you all who came.